Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Kiran, I'm a junior doctor and a comedian working in Manchester. Now I made a few videos last year where I reacted to Adam Kay's book, This Is Going to Hurt. And recently, because the new TV series came out, these videos have started going absolutely mad. This is part 3 of checking out This Is Gonna Hurt and seeing if it relates to real life as a doctor today. Let's get into it. As per tradition, I celebrate the end of our run of night shifts with my SHO and go for a slap-up breakfast and a bottle of white wine. Night shifts always really confuse my body. I don't know, am I meant to eat breakfast at that point because it's the morning? Or am I eating dinner because it's the end of my day? I always just end up having 2 breakfasts because I absolutely love breakfast and it's definitely the best meal. It would be unfair to label every single orthopedic surgeon as a bone-crunching Neanderthal simply on the basis of the 99% of them it applies to. I've done orthopedics twice and this isn't a reputation that orthopedic surgeons have. Those guys absolutely love bones. I feel like running a teaching session for the orthopedic department entitled Sometimes People Fall Over for a Reason. Now this is one of the problems people have with orthopedic surgeons, is that they're only focusing on doing their job, which is there is a broken bone, how can we fix this, how can we replace this joint, how can we put a plate or some screws in, but actually there's a reason behind that. If an elderly person has fallen and broken their hip, why have they actually fallen in the first place? In a lot of hospitals in the UK now, we have both an orthopedic team and also an orthogeriatric team, which is a medical team attached to the orthopedic team or working alongside them that just look at the medical problems that have led to that. So for example, working out why that elderly person has fallen. Assisting in theatres on the emergency list, removing a foreign object from a patient's rectum. Now, I've never done this. I've heard a lot of stories of things being removed, accidentally put in rectum, but the junior doctors often do the brunt work, especially in theatre. You're just holding things, holding scalpels, holding cameras, that sort of thing. And you do a lot of the rubbish jobs as well. I remember when I worked in general surgery, I did a manual evacuation. Now, this is pretty grim, just a bit of a warning about it. If someone is so constipated that laxatives aren't working, one of the things you can do is pop a finger inside and scoop out that poop. Yep. And sometimes the junior doctor has to do that. Called to pronounce a death on an elderly patient. He'd been extremely sick. So pronouncing death is something that junior doctors have to do, and often it's their FY1, so the new doctor who's covering the wards, whose responsibility that is. You get taught at medical school when and how to confirm a death, and you have to be in the room with that person for 5 minutes, listening for breath sounds, checking for heart sounds, feeling a central pulse, looking in their eyes, assessing their response to things. 5 minutes with someone who has passed away and who's actually passed away is a really long time. That person is only officially dead when that doctor has pronounced it. I extend condolences to the patient's wife. I've pronounced 3 deaths before, but this is the first time I've had a captive audience. So as I said, it feels like a really long time, and sometimes patients' families want to stay in the room while you do that because they want to spend their time with their loved ones. And it's a really difficult thing because they can be there if they want to, but there's just a complete awkward silence in the room while you're doing it. Every time she says something, I leap up like a doctor hearing a noise while listening carefully to the chest of a corpse. And this is one of the problems, is that you're listening for breath sounds. You've got your stethoscope on someone's chest, listening for them breathing. And you do imagine yourself hearing noises, even on someone who's clearly passed away. Just any movement or noise in the room can project itself and you can hear that through your stethoscope. And so you've got to really concentrate while you're doing it. This weekend is my best mate Ron's stag do, and I've had to bail out with barely 4 hours notice. This is one of the problems of being a junior doctor, is not being able to plan your life and not being able to have that balance. The reason that this sort of thing happens is because there are gaps in the rotas, and also because you don't get your rota until just before when you start that job. For example, if I am doing a 6-month rotation, I might not get my rota for that job until a few weeks before. So if someone tells me last year, oh, my wedding is in July, I don't know if I'm free or not because I'm not starting that rotation yet. So I can't say yes or no to it. It's happened to me. I've missed stag do's, I've missed people's weddings, I've missed birthdays, milestone birthdays, everything you could have missed, a junior doctor has missed. I spend the entire night shifts feeling like water is gushing into the hull of my boat. I run from chest pain to sepsis to atrial fibrillation to acute asthma all night like some sort of medical decathlon. And much like a decathlon, you do a lot of steps while you're covering the wards, going from patient to patient to unwell patient. I almost on my watch will hit 10,000 steps when I've been covering the wards on a night shift. Lots of hospitals have this fancy system now called iBleep, which is basically where all the jobs that people want you to do, although they used to be bleeped to you and used to get a telephone call, used to write down the jobs and prioritize them, they now in a lot of places will go into a computer system, and then that computer system will prioritize the job in terms of color, and so you can do the red, the urgent ones first, then the ambient ones, and then the green ones. And so that's a really good way of being able to prioritize, and also so that everyone else knows where you are at that time. Senior house officer, post 1. By August 2005, I was a senior house officer, still extremely junior, but the word senior had now been chucked into my job title. A senior house officer can be anything from a second-year doctor to almost a fifth-year doctor. And so, although it sounds like you are senior because you've got senior in your title, you are in fact still very junior. I believe it's technically possible to fail the house officer year and be required to repeat it, but I've never actually heard of that happening. I've also never heard of that happening. The only things you really have to do are some mandatory skills and examinations, to do some reflections in your portfolio, and if you're doing okay, you're pretty much guaranteed to pass that year. Senior house officer is the point at which you decide what to specialise in. I think the reason I hesitated is that I hadn't made many significant life decisions. And that's completely true, because realistically, if you want to be a doctor, you need to start getting work experience age 14, 15. So you need to have decided that early, oh, I might want to be a doctor. And at that point, realistically, how much do you know about life? And it's the point where you are a senior house officer as a doctor, where you then decide, well, what part of medicine do I want to be in? What am I going to apply for? And that's a huge decision to make, because you're going to be working in that for the next 40, 50 years potentially. It's the third time this week my boxers have been soaked in someone else's blood, and I've had no option but to chuck them away and continue the shift commando. At £15 a pop for CKs, I think I'm running my job at a loss. Never wear nice things at work. They're just going to get ruined. If you wear nice shoes, someone will be sick on them. If you wear a nice shirt, someone will spill blood on them. If you wear nice trousers, there will be some bodily fluids spilt on them. That's the lesson I've learnt from working in hospital. So if you're a new doctor, that's some great advice for you. Accosted by the house officer who's come to take a look at the post-surgical patient who hasn't passed urine in the last 9 hours. I tell the house officer that I haven't passed urine in the last 11 hours because of people like him wasting my time. When you're a senior house officer, it's the first time as a doctor you've got people more junior to you that are coming to you asking for advice about patients, because you're more experienced than them. It's quite a privileged position to be in, but you also need to not forget what it was like being at that stage and remember to be helpful towards them. In terms of passing urine, I have a nurses call me in the night to say, this patient hasn't passed urine for the past 6 hours at 5 in the morning, and the patient's been asleep the whole time. Okay, so they've not passed urine at night? Bleeped at 2 AM and asked to review a gynecology inpatient who was unconscious. A nurse traipses off to find a blood glucose monitor for me from another ward. Why does no ward ever have a blood glucose monitor to hand? Why do we always have to try and get one from another ward? This happened to me on a plane recently. Literally last week, in a video that I'm going to put on the channel very soon. If it's out, I will be linking it above, about when I was on a plane and there was a medical emergency, and the first time it's ever happened to me on a plane, I had to attend to it, and they were about to divert the plane. If you want to watch that video, feel free to check it out here or on the end screen. That was part 3 of checking out This Is Going to Hurt. If you enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel so you can check out future videos. Take care, and I'll see you next time.